Awesome. Awesome. And we have live stream audio. So I still don't know exactly what the problem was before, but I just wanted to play. And because, we are live streaming, welcome to the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show. I am your host, Kamaria T. Richmond, and I am new and with all these wonderful technical glitches on a platform called Riverside. And one of the things that I was excited about is that I wanted to do this for the intro. So just hold on for a second.
Okay. Nothing's happening. I don't hear anything.
So that was exciting. I have been playing with this platform all week, getting ready for my guest, Saran Baker. And Saran is my Black Door Society sister. And if you've been on the Stroke Diva Fabulous show, I've talked about it on my previous platform, TalkShoe. But Saran is covered by Saran. That is the name of her company. And she is a speaker and a someone, if you are trying to get your finances right and tight and ready, Saran is your girl. She is a financial educator as well as a nationally known speaker. And so today we want to talk about a few things. One, we hope the feds are going to cut the rates next month. So we're going to talk a little bit about finance. We're going to talk a little bit about Black Door Society. And Saran and I are both, we are so excited to share with our audience. We are both in an anthology called, and it's from our Black Door Society sister, Dr. Marcia Whitaker. She's our visionary author. It is Destiny Expose, the anthology, Leading Ladies edition. And so we both have a chapter in that book, which hits in September. So we're going to talk about that. But Saran has a personal story that I want to share with our audience. I've been on her podcast, which is wonderful. And so having her here is fabulous. But Saran has an interesting story. And so, Saran, welcome to the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show. My first time on Riverside. So I know that was a little wordy trying to get it all in, and I'm checking, the backgrounds, making sure everything is okay. But welcome to the show. But you have such a personal story on how you got into financial literacy. And I'd love for you to share that story.
Okay, because you said Serena has an interesting story. I'm like, what story you want to hear today? You know, I'm a storyteller. I got plenty of stories.
I know.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to finally be here. I've had you on my show, but I haven't been able to make it to yours just due to timing. So
Yes.
I'm super excited to be here with you. You have an amazing spirit and energy, and I can't keep up with you. So I don't know how anybody else does, but I can't keep up. Half of the stuff I see you do, I'm like, I'm taking a nap. I'm gonna go take a nap. But anyway, thank you so much. One of the things that led me into the financial industry itself was my own trials and tribulations with finances, right? And I talk a little bit about it in the book, but really my story for coming into the financial industry was one that I had reached my 40s. I had been working for a company for a really long time. I was making double six figures. I was killing the game. And so I thought, and I didn't want for anything. If I wanted it, I got it. But my company merged and they had to remove three departments. And I was in one of the three departments. And I found myself in a place of not knowing what to do and trying to figure out how I was making double six figures and didn't have enough money to live past 1 year, right? I did good for 1 year, but it was like, where is all that money? I didn't have enough financial education and a financial knowledge and an action plan to put me in a place where I wouldn't have to worry about money for the rest of my life. So I made it my business to figure out how to do it. And when I started finding the answers and the different pieces of information, I asked a key question. I said, why don't more people know about this? Why don't why did I have to dig? Because I literally had to go and dig for the information. And the person I was talking to at the time, he said, well, why don't you start teaching it? And I was like, I can do that. He's like, yeah, here's how you do it. So I said, sign me up. I'm ready to, I'm an advocate and I consider myself somewhat of an evangelist. And so I brought myself to a place of being the advocate for other women to help them go from places, uh, what I call chaos, can't handle any financial obstacles, sent to a place of calm, control, abundance, legacy creation, and money mastery. Because you can be making high six figures, but not really know what to do with your money, because I can't be the only one, right? But the thing is that I followed the formula that they gave me. So it wasn't that I didn't do anything. I contributed to my retirement plans. I had a savings account. Um, I was making sure I had my health insurance. I had those things, but it wasn't enough, right? In times of a downturn. Oh, by the way, because I was highly educated, I also had six figures in student loan debt. And so, in looking to try to compare, how do you go from having the high income or making a transition, having high student loans, trying to figure out how to pay off six figures in student loans and get to seven figures in the retirement account, right? Because when you do the math, you have to have at least seven figures in your retirement account, because the good thing for all of us is there's all this biohacking and we're all going to live to 100. Right? But who's going to work until they're 100? And so that's one of the reasons that I do what I do. And I really do my best to try to impact as many women as possible. And I don't leave the men out, but I have a focus and I have a passion for women who were like me. But at the end of the day, it's, are you ready to make the change and make the shift to go from where you are to where you want to be?
And that's so key, Saran, being able to make that shift. Now, what was it, growing up, because you're in college, and I know you have your degrees in marketing, and also you're into human resources. But what was it? Was there a time that you said, you know what, financial literacy, even before you had to go through your own personal struggles, was there something that said, financial literacy is going to be one of those extras I add into my, repertoire of what I want to do?
It wasn't there. It wasn't something that I saw myself doing um, as an active thing. But I've been a servant. I've always been the person on my job when new people came, hey, these are the things you need to do. You need to make sure you max this, you do that, you put money here. Don't leave money on the table. I was always the one saying, hey, go get these perks. I always knew what all the great employee benefits were when I worked at my company. How many employee benefits did you leave on the table because you didn't go look at the website? I used all of them, right? And so I would
Mm.
just share that. And I didn't think about that as a business. I was thinking that it's just being a good person, right? And I served in the community doing different things, making sure students had book bags, doing food service, just doing a lot of different things to all the other organizations that I'm affiliated with. But at the end of the day, when I came to it, I never thought I would be in finance because I'm not a math person, right? And people think you have to be a math person to be in finance. No, you have to be a common sense person who gets it. Because I am not a person who is a math person. When I tell you I'm not a math person, let's just say I'm so glad I graduated all the schools I went to that gave me math classes, right? I made it. But when you start talking finance and you start talking about building wealth and moving money around and concepts and ways to do things, those things really intrigue me and really just envelop me, because I see not just a way for me, I see a way for me to create generational wealth for myself and for those coming behind me, but to show other people to create these different plans, right? And I know generational wealth is the buzzword, but guess what? Every way that they tell you you can create generational wealth probably works. The
And
question is, do you work? Will
yeah,
you do the work? Will you take the action? And there's some are simpler than others, right? But there's some, a lot of them will create it, but will you do the work? And not just the work, but will you do the paperwork that's required for it to be transferable, be a transferable asset?
and that's what I want to ask you about, Saran. Give us, your top, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20. I mean, what is it that we must do and have to do? One, yes, we want to create that generational wealth, but even before we get to creating that wealth, for our family members, what do we need to do for ourselves?
Well, it's kind of an individual answer, right? It really depends on who you are and what you want to do, right? So I'll take you for example, right? I know you love to share, you love to speak, you love to be present. Like you are like a present person. You are always present and you show up for people, right? And so what would you want to do to create generational wealth? And the other thing is, I think for my single ladies, they think, oh, if you're single and you don't have kids, they think, I'm single, I don't have kids. Why would I create generational wealth? Well, oh, by the way, what about nieces and nephews? What about godchildren? What about all those organizations you love that could use a transfer of wealth when it's time? What about those things? Because they not only will need it, but it'll be a place to sustain your name in the world and make a mark for you when you're no longer here. So you really have to think about the person when it comes to creating generational wealth. So for my single girls who don't have kids, I'm going to be talking to them about how to maximize their dollars now to live the life they want to live, to go on the trips, to go to all the brunches, to buy the real estate they want, to level up, to access private jets if that's what they want to do all the things that they feel like they want to do here while they're living, but also set it up to where guess what? We all, if we're all lucky, we'll get older, that they have finance in place that will help take care of them when they need to be taken care of. And then making sure you have paperwork that says who can take care of you, right? And it's called an advanced medical directive. And then having a power of attorney, having paperwork in place that says who's going to make decisions for you if you can't make decisions. Um, and then making sure you have a trust. Notice I did not say will. Making
Mhm.
sure you have a trust. And this is no offense to the legal community, but a will is an invitation to probate court, right?
Uh-huh.
And probate court is not all bad and it's not all good, but it can be a pain in the you know what if you have a bunch of people contesting and a bunch of people, stating claim and all those things. And that is even more, that's important when you have a family and you have kids and you have siblings. And it's important when you're a single person too, because who are these people jumping up now talking about they want your stuff? So, but having a trust is something that it's a legal entity that provides for how you want things directed. And I know, I think we talked about this over brunch the other day. I have a trust, and it says specifically if anybody in that trust that is named or not named contested in any way, shape, fashion, or form, you are no longer entitled to anything in here.
Yes,
Nothing.
I love that.
Right. And that's the power of putting that type of document in place. You
Yeah.
can't do that with just a will, right? Now, a trust is not an inexpensive legal instrument, right? But it is something that is accessible to all of us. If you own a home, you should have a trust. If you own a car and a home, you should have a trust. If you have bank accounts with money in them, you should have a trust. If you have life insurance at any level, you should have a trust. If you're a human being walking around and you know you're not going to get out of life alive, you should have a trust.
Mm.
So that's one of the things. The other thing is making sure you have some strategic things in place, making sure that you don't spend your time only listening to the talking heads. And right now we're talking heads because we're on TV, but we're on online, but making sure that you're doing your due diligence, making sure you're getting into appointments and getting individualized advice, because cookie cutter advice doesn't always work for everyone. Or someone's telling you this is what they did and that worked for them, that may not necessarily work for you because your situation is different than that person.
Mhm.
It's good information to give you an idea where to start looking, but always get in a room with a professional. The other thing is making sure you have plenty of vehicles to plan for your long term finances. And it's something that I noticed the other day. We hear people back in the day, our generation, I might be lucky if I get Social Security because I'm a Gen X. So I'm like, right here,
Mhm.
maybe, right?
Maybe.
But the other generations aren't going to get it for a couple of reasons. One, and I play this video on my master classes. They're spending the money as fast as it's coming in,
Mm.
and there's videos of the congressman saying that, right? They're spending as fast as it comes in. But the other thing is, and I love this about the Gen Zs and the younger generation that's coming through, they're creating their own income through self-employment and
Yeah.
being independent, which
Yes.
is amazing, which wasn't something that was the first thing offered to us. But by you being self-employed, you don't pay social security tax. So if they're not paying the social security tax,
Oh.
you're not contributing to it. And you have to contribute to the social security tax for 40 quarters. That's 10 years essentially, but you have to contribute to it. Now there's some alternate plans that's a little bit less, but that doesn't mean you're getting any money. So you have to have these contributions. So not only are they spending the money fast, they're not as many people contributing to it because they're working in industries and working in ways where they're not required to pay that social security tax. And so now you're not even putting yourself in a place to qualify. And that includes disability, just so you know. You got to still have paid into it. It's not just
Mm.
it's not a benefit plan. And so we have to have these things to be ready. And we have to decide where we want to be in life. Do we want to be in the part of life where at some point in our life we may be dependent on the government? Or do we want to be, or family or charity? And there's nothing wrong with charity. I'm charitable, but I don't want to be dependent on it.
Mhm.
And then there are some people who maybe you're in your twilight years and you're still going to be working. Is that what you want to be? You got to ask yourself those questions. Do you want to be, where you are financially okay, but you don't have to worry about anything, but you're not rich, but you're okay. You don't, worry about nothing. That's a good place to be. Or do you want to be, in a wealthy place where nothing phases you, right? Decide, right? Nobody's going to say, oh, I don't want to be here. Now, there are some people who do say that they're a little bit on the other side, but we have to think about it and plan for ourselves where and what we want to do. And so that's what really becomes, that's kind of like the five things to really think about is, how do you want to transfer your wealth? How much do you want to transfer? How will you be taken care of if you have a medical issue? Who's going to take care of your finances if you can't take care of it, right? And then, the big thing is the overall, like, how do I want to retire? And while people think of retirement is a conversation for people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, it's a conversation for the 20 somethings because that's where you're going to be able to make more strategic moves and bigger sacrifices for the future so that you can really direct where you're going.
Wow, Saran, that's so much good information. And what is it that you think that makes people say, you know what? I can't do that right now. I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow or next week or when I'm 30 or 40 or 50. Um, what can we do to get ourselves on track ASAP
Get
with
out of debt.
going through some major, for me, it was the stroke, but I had been working with a financial planner. So at the age of 37, when I had a stroke, my finances were in order.
Hmm.
Now I didn't at that time, I don't think I didn't have the will or the trust or the advance directive, or I didn't have any of that because I was, you know, I was young. I had my 401k, but there wasn't, my mother was always my beneficiary if something happened to me, but I didn't have, anything else in place except for, all my bills were paid off, and I had gotten to a point where I had to stop working. And so I didn't have any debt. I had great health care. And so things, worked in my favor. But when you don't have any of that, without having to go through the horror stories, what do we do?
I think the biggest thing we can do, and I mentioned it we have to get out of debt.
Mm,
And here's why. Debt is the single most draining factor on our finances than
absolutely.
anything. Just think about it. We're both I'm sitting in the house, you're sitting in the house. I'm paying interest on it. Yeah, I mean, I got a little interest rate. It's not high. It's not the what the new one is, right? It's like 4.5, 5%, right? Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you say 4.5, 5% of 500,000, a million, it's a lot of money when it's amortized daily, when it's calculated on a regular basis, right? And then when we start looking at credit card debt and secured and unsecured loans, our credit card debt, the credit cards are 20%, 29%, 30%. And so if every $100 you bring in, you're paying $40 of it in interest, not for goods and services, not for anything fun, just for interest, that's what's draining our wealth. It's draining our abilities to really live a good life. And I know they sold us a bill of goods when they said, "Oh, just get this card. We'll loan it to you." It really is a loan. And so that's why I do talk to people. I say, "Listen, would you take out a loan to buy a cheeseburger? Would you take out a loan to get a chicken sandwich with the good chicken sauce?" So why are we using our credit cards at fast food places? Why are we using our credit cards for food, fashion, and fun? Are you going to take out a loan to wear a cute outfit? And that's why we have to start thinking about our credit cards as loans and not just credit cards, because we're paying interest on everything we put on those cards, right? And I'm not saying it in a judgmental way. Got the credit card, bought the t-shirt, right? Got the t-shirt free generation, right? I graduated college with 17 credit cards and
Wow.
they were all full. Now in college, they weren't two, three, $4,000 a credit card. They were more like $200, $300 a credit card. But it still was a lot of debt, because the first thing we do when we come out of high school, if we, depending on our situation, we may go straight to college. And at 18, well, 17 in my case, I don't know how they let me sign a promissory note at 17, but I signed a student loan for $10,000 or whatever it was that freshman year. I don't have no job. So, but I get right into debt immediately. And so that should tell you something about the system of debt. The idea is that as long as you're in debt, you will work. And as long as you work, you will continue to build more debt and then continue to pay for more debt and continue to pay more interest. And hence create your own rat race. Nobody forced you into the rat race, but they sure did make it very enticing to get into it.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you say, um, think of your debt as a loan, because I've never really thought
It's
about it
a
that way.
loan.
Because now, especially, I know when inflation, was hot and heavy, I know I was using my cards for everything and still using them for everything, not
Mhm.
thinking, oh, I'm going to this, yeah, my little cute little t-shirt. Oh, that's really, I have to
And
remember
again,
to
it's not an
say,
indictment because I
yeah,
have credit
but you
cards.
don't think about it that way. And so, and I know during the pandemic, I've racked up more and more debt because I wasn't thinking about using it as a loan. I'm just thinking, oh, I'm going to use my card and, yeah, I'll pay it, next month. And so it's easy to get into that rat race. I'm glad you focus on um, debt. And so, what are some of the other services that you offer with your Covered by Saran?
Oh, I actually have a comprehensive program where I do help um, women and families. I mean, if you're not a woman watching, I can help you too, but mostly again, I focus on women, but I help you get out of debt and through a systematic way with a plan, with a structured way that where you're getting out of debt and accumulating more wealth for the future. And so that's a significant change from what most people have. And a lot of times you may get the story to say you'll never be out of debt. And the reality is we could all be stuck in debt if we don't have the right plan. And that plan includes getting out of debt for your house, your car, your mortgage, your credit cards, all of it, not just some of it. And it's not consolidation, it's a systematic plan, but we also work on your mindset about debt so that you are moving forward because all debt is not bad.
Okay.
All debt is not bad. The
Okay.
debt that's bad is the consumer debt that we are in. The debt that's good is if that debt is generating income for you on your business. If you have business debt and that business debt is generating income for you, then that's good debt because it's an ass it's producing income, right? And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, buy a house is good debt, don't worry about it." It sounds good. It's only good debt if you find a way to make that house produce income for you.
Mm,
So
that's
using
deep.
space as an office, we talked about this before. Using some space as an office, having a space in you, having an office space, having a podcast space in your home, having using it to do business stuff, renting it back to your business. And there's a lot of specific ways to do that, but making it a real asset because now if it's able to generate income for you, now you're in a place where it's not just somewhere to live because a home is somewhere to make memories. A home is somewhere to a safe place for you to lay your head, your family, somewhere where your friends and family can gather, where you can do different things, but it also can be an asset, an income producing asset if you're able to leverage it to do things to move that to move in a place where it's making money for you. Now, everybody's not a business owner. Everybody's not does not want to be an entrepreneur. Everybody doesn't want to have a side hustle or do any of that, and totally respect it. But find a way to make sure that you're using your assets to the best of your ability, not just to take out a HELOC or to get a refinance and take cash out to do more stuff. Find ways to leverage it so that you're moving forward. Now, I do talk about some of these things on my podcast and in my community, but the reality is, in specific ways, we have been hoodwinked into thinking that there's only one way, and there's so many ways to generate and build wealth and leverage it and go the distance to be able to not just take care of yourself, but to sustain yourself in a place where you don't feel stuck.
Yes. And that's, I mean, now that is some sound advice because that's the thing. I think we do get to a place where we do feel stuck and we feel, I can't move forward because I have this and this and this and this, going on and, I don't know what to do. And so you kind of start spinning your wheels and before you know it, you're just spinning your wheels and you're not getting anything done because there's just so much coming down the pike every day.
Mhm.
Life is, it seems since the pandemic that life has just become more overwhelming. And especially, with the interest rates. And so I'll just ask you this little quick question about the Fed reducing the rates next month, even if it's just a little half a point or whatever. How do you think that, I mean, does that just mentally make us feel better? Or how do you think that'll affect everyday Americans?
It's a mental manipulation game.
Okay.
So here's the deal: the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. The Federal Reserve is made up of the 12 top banks in the United States. The people who are making the decisions about the interest rates are the people who make the money from the interest rates. So a lot of people have the misconception that because it's called the Fed Reserve, or we refer to it as the Fed, that it is a government entity or it's the federal government or it's none of that. Google it, right?
Mm.
And so these are the presidents, of the top 12 banks that are deciding collectively what to charge you. I mean, let us sink in. I mean, because at the end of the day, not to not to go so far, but we are the product. We put our money in the bank for them to give us 1% on the money we deposited, and they take that same money that we deposited and loan it out 7 to 10 times to other people at 10, 20, 30, 40% and pay us 1% or less than 1%, and then decide on a regular basis how much that percent is they're going to charge you to loan money that they technically are holding for you. Technically, they're holding Americans' money for us, and then you tell us how much you're going to charge us to borrow the money you're holding for us.
That is
So,
amazing.
I mean, I know you were probably looking for a way more politically correct answer, but
But it is what it is.
but the thing is that it's a mental game, right? And so if you get wrapped up in the game and put yourself in a place where you're always being allowing the news or the changes to polarize your decisions, then you're never going to win, because you have to find a way to get in the middle and always stay even keeled about it and make logical decisions versus these back and forth. What logical decision can you make when it's reduced that will benefit you, your family, or your business? Is the question you should be asking. It's the question we should all be asking ourselves. How does that change benefit me?
Yes.
Good or bad? If it doesn't, move on. Right?
It's
move on, because if you wrap yourself up emotionally in everything, you're always going to be exactly where they want you to be. And I say that with a little, because ever since we went into the pandemic, everything around us has controlled our emotions.
Yes.
We've allowed it because the news, the radio, all the stuff, anything changes, some slightness in what happening in social media, and we're like this. We got all the apps to notify us of every piece of crime that's happening in the neighborhood, and you should have some idea what's happening around you so that you can make decisions, but not for it to impact your emotions. Because what happens is, as those emotions peak, right, you put yourself in a state of distress, and your body, your blood pressure goes up, everything changes. And we're on the Stroke Diva Fabulous show, so we might as well say people are having strokes because it's just so much happening. It's going to your head, and you don't know what's happening. That's obviously not the scientific answer to having a stroke, but all these things are factors, right? And if we're always on this emotional roller coaster, our bodies don't know what we're doing, and we're not regulating ourselves. And so we have to get to a place of regulating that, because if our mental state and our physical state and our spiritual state is not regulated, then how are you going to handle your money? It's not going to be regulated either.
That is so
because
true.
if you're off in those areas, just think about it. You have a health challenge. You don't care how much it costs to pay to get the pain to stop, or to be mobile again, or to think straight, or whatever it is. You'll spend all the money you have, right, to get that health back where you need to be. Again, it's not a place of even keel, because you're in an extreme state, right? If you're under mental duress or mental stress and stuff is happening, and we're either you're losing loved ones, or you're in a fight with your significant other, or your spouse, or the kids, your adult kids, or the little kids. You can fight with the little kids all day though. You just fight with them all day. You're just frustrated, and you're like, I'm gonna just buy you whatever it is I need to buy you to make you stop, right? but you're gonna and then end up making a financial decision, right? And then when we're not spiritually aligned and we don't trust that God sent us here with everything we need within us, and that any dollars we want to create, we can create because He didn't just send us here, He sent us here as creators. And whatever we need, we can create if we are in a creative space, then we're going to make financial decisions out of stress,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So all of it impacts us because at the end of the day, when we really look at it, our finances are the single place that's a physical visibility of what's going on with us physically, mentally, and mentally. Because our finances will show if we're healthy physically, if we're healthy mentally, if we're healthy spiritually, because all of that's there. And one of the things, it's funny, I saw one of my colleagues, he posted a video and it just reminded me money's not real. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but money isn't real. Money was made up because the barter system didn't work long distance. I can't barter you for a
Oh,
dozen goats 2 continents away to get a dozen cows. But I can give you money and get whatever I need. I can give you copper coins or wood coins as a promissory note to get what I want. If you look at the evolution of where it come from, and there's a book, I forgot the name of it's The History of Money or Money Origins. I forget the name of the book, but they talk about how it began. And so it didn't exist until we created it because we're creators in order to create an exchange, and it's evolved into what we see now. And so the thing I tell people and I talk to people about is you can tell the level of value that you put into the world by the amount of money that you bring home or the amount of money you generate in your life.
ooh,
And
that's
it doesn't mean that the work that you do is insignificant. It just means that there's a higher dollar paid for different levels of value that you create in the world. So if you're not making enough money doing what you're doing, then you should find a way to create more value in the world so that you can be paid for it. Here's an example. We appreciate when we go to hotels that our maid service is clean. It's a great service that we do need done, right? But it's not something that changes the world because you see now TikTokers, they go to the hotel and clean the rooms themselves when they get there, right? Not knocking it because we need them, right? But
mhm.
it's hard work, but it's classified at that level where it's not a high value paying role. Not that the work is not high intensity or high work. Then you have someone who maybe is the manager of said place. Well, that's going to pay more because they have a different skill set that they are bringing. Then
Mhm.
you have someone that is, kind of the overseer or maybe the business owner of it. So they're going to make a little bit more. But then you have the people who are full creators and they're using their voice and their gift and they're using everything to create value. And what they do is they find a problem and solve it for the people who have the problem. And
Mhm.
when they solve that problem, they get paid the value. Example, let's use social media. Who knew we needed social media 30 years ago? Right? We
Right.
were always connecting. Remember those old phone lines? You run your phone bill up. We were always finding ways to connect, right? Those the party line. That's what it was called, the
Yes.
party line. And
Yes.
then AOL came out, you had the little instant messenger, right? And it's evolved into like Teams and Google Chat and whatever. But you
Oh,
had, the AOL messenger and those AOL chat groups. You had that, and then the next thing you know, we had MySpace, and you could see pictures, still pictures with some hot song, and then it just kept going and going and going because as people we want to be connected. And so social media solved that because now we can connect with anybody, anywhere, anytime through any medium from a phone. And
Mhm.
that didn't exist back then. We through the phone you had to call, but now it's like you pick up the phone and you can see the person.
Right.
But that technology itself solved the problem that the people who started doing that found a problem we didn't even know existed technically and created a level of value and brought it to us. And now they get paid billions of dollars to do it, but also they've also monetized us because now they sell advertising to get to us on the social media platforms. So they solved another problem for business owners. So the people who are making the most money are the people who are solving the most problems at a
Mm.
higher level.
Yes.
And so, what problem are you solving that warrants a high dollar amount to be paid? And that's the question. And so that's the thing that we do. So I go into finance because I had a big problem with my finances. And I said, I would pay someone to help me solve this problem. So why don't I be the person that people pay to help them solve the problem?
Yeah.
Right? Just like we have both of us have podcasts. That doesn't necessarily always pay initially, depending on how it's set up, but it's an information medium to share high level information
Right.
and communicate, right? But
Right.
there are ways that in the podcast community you can monetize and you can make money. And when you grow to a certain point, you can make millions of dollars when you have so many people following you and participating and consuming your information, because then you will have be at a place where you're solving so many people's problems. And so that really is where we need to be, is to get to a higher level of value that we're bringing to the industry or to the market, so that there's no question on what we need, that we need to be paid for what we do.
Right. That is, I love that point. That is so good. What problem are you solving, and equate that with the dollar amount. But before we run out of time, I want to definitely hit on a couple more things. Uh, you are a member of Black Door Society, and you're also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And as someone that is connected, um, to women and women and their finances, how is it being in organizations? And I'm not sure if you're part of any other organizations. Um, how does that help us financially, especially as women, and even more specifically as women of color?
Well, being a part of organization, it provides a level of connectedness,
Mm,
because the human condition essentially can sometimes put us in a state of loneliness, whether we admit it or not. I mean, there are not a lot of people who will admit it, but there are places and spaces in our lives where we do things to just not be alone. But when we become a part of connected organizations with like minded men and women, then we find ourselves in a place called community, because we were built to be in community. And so as we get in community is where we become stronger. And that's, that's as they say in the Bible that, one is strong, but when you put two together, you can't break two apart because they're stronger together. And so the biggest thing is to get into community, because it creates the place and the space where you can build businesses, you can build other people, you can pull people out of poverty, as a group, because you have a shared mission. And the other thing is that when you get in community, you can create what they call a mastermind. And what the mastermind does is it confuses the devil, because you can become one mind, one heart, one mission, and be so focused on it that nothing can stop you. And so that's why it's so important to be a part of communities like you and I are in Black Door Society. And I know you're a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, and I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. But you can do things as a group that will be impossible as an individual. And you have the power of that gift of that one-mindedness where you're focused, you're together, you're synchronized, and nothing can stop you. And so if you don't have that, I encourage people to find spaces and places to do it, because it doesn't just exist in sororities. It exists, we're in the DMV era. It exists through 100 Black women. It exists through some of the other women's organizations, Top Ladies of Distinction, the Links, the Red Hatters, the Moles. And I'm just calling. I'm not members of these, but I know they exist, right? They have something called the Society. There's a lot of different places and spaces. Even if you create a Facebook group and say, this is just my group of people, we're gonna hang out and we're gonna run the world together, that's still community, and you have to create it. And it's so important. And that's why I created a community of women as well for their finances, and I'm rebranding it right now. But right now it's Sister Sense. You can find it on Facebook, and you can join. But having that mastermind where we're all in it together, and having it for things that you want to drive forward together on a mission. Because when you come together, nothing can take you apart. But when there's one little thing, one little sliver in there of discord, then you can be broken apart. But you have to find that place of unity. And those places of unity are places of power.
I love that, Saran. Oh, I love that, my sister. Those places of unity are places of power and community. And and as you know, community is something that is so important to me because, if you are someone like me that's had, a major health challenge, it's been my communities that have really helped me grow and move. And so that's such an important point. And so the other thing we wanted to talk about is the Destiny Expose, the anthology, Leading Ladies edition, which, as I mentioned earlier, the visionary behind this is Dr. Marcia Whitaker, and she is a member of Black Door Society. So, sis, tell me about your chapter.
That chapter was tough. So my chapter is a tale of leadership, a sister mom's tale of strength through loss. And I talk in that chapter, I talk about the process I went through after my mother died, right out of college, of becoming the sister mom to my siblings because there was no one else to do it. And it was interesting to write. It was emotional. I tapped into things I didn't know I still had feelings about. I was like, I still got feelings about that. Where those come from? But it was fun to write, and I do take you through, some very interesting times and some leadership things that I learned. Learning to depend on myself, learning that sometimes you have to save yourself. That nobody's coming, and you got to get up and get going and get it done. um, Being able to also learn to be in community, because that's when, as an independent as I was, I learned to lean on the community. I learned to tap into resources, into spiritual centers. I learned to be vulnerable, which was something I did not know how to do. Um, I'm still growing, if I'm being honest, and allowing myself to be in a space that I never thought I would be in, because I never wanted to be a mom. And being a guardian is the same thing as being a mom, because you got to still take care of everything and go to the PTA meeting and be at the pickup and go to the daycare and food and clothing and sacrifice and all that. And it was a big job at 23 to start doing that, and I didn't finish until, good Lord, I probably was almost 40. But it was fun to write, and I'm excited to get that out as my first book, as a part of becoming an author. And so I can't wait till September 20th when it drops and everybody can buy it and they can read it and they can really, just become a part of my heart, because I didn't use my brain to write it.
Oh,
I didn't use my brain to write it because my brain is so smart. It's like, just write down all the facts. Don't write down no emotion.
and that, I mean, but so it was very um, therapeutic for you to be able to sit and write from your heart. And what do you want the takeaway to be from the readers?
I feel like the biggest thing, to take away is that you can do it. Is that it doesn't matter how dark the days are. It doesn't matter how many people say you can't do that you can do it. And the other thing is, one big thing in there that I know now that I didn't really know then was I always had a choice. And so I want readers to take away you always have a choice. Even in the toughest decisions that we feel like we do have a choice. And the choice is not to act at all, to say no and to go the other way. But not recognizing you have a choice makes it much heavier than
Mhm.
knowing, you know what, I don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this, which choosing to do something can bring you more joy than feeling like you have to do something.
That is so true. And that was just another like light bulb moment or moment. It's the choices that we make because sometimes we just feel like we're obligated.
Mhm.
Um, and if and if we don't do it, you just there's just going to be disaster if we are personally not the ones, stepping up to the plate to do something. It's just going to be disastrous. But just that reminder that we have the choice is just exciting. And so I'm excited to read your chapter because I know that it is coming from the heart. And Saran, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to cover?
Um, no, nothing I can think of. Nothing I can think of. What
Great.
about you? Is there anything else you want to look? Anything else you want to squeeze out of me?
Well, you're so good. You're so good. You're such a wealth of knowledge. But I did want to make sure. Thank you for putting your tag there. As I was saying, there is a way I should be able, as I'm promoting the Stroke Diva Fabulous show, I should be able to do yours as well. So I'm going to have to play with this platform so I can shout out my guest as well. But Saran, let folks know how they can reach you, to book those must needed appointments. I am on that list. I it
Don't
has been,
worry, I know where to find you.
it has been
Well,
almost a year, and I keep saying, once I get myself straight, I'm gonna see Saran. Once I get myself
well,
straight,
let me say this. This is the last thing I'm gonna say. Stop trying to get together. Right? You don't need to get anything together to meet with a financial professional. That's our job. You
right,
know, it's just as crazy as let me clean the house before the maid comes. Let me go work out before I go see the physical trainer.
right.
Let me lose 20 pounds before I go hire a physical. Like, it doesn't make it make sense
Oh,
because it doesn't make sense, right?
yeah,
Now, we've all been guilty because I'm thinking, what do I need to clean if the cleaning people are coming on Monday? And the only thing I need to do before the cleaning people do is make sure I've washed all the sheets so they can change, they can do the stuff they need to do. The rest of it, I'm not going to do.
right.
And so that's the thing with a lot of people waste their time trying to do things because they think, oh, there are things that they should have done. You don't know what opportunities you're missing out on by not starting now with the financial professional. So let me tell you how to reach me. You can find me on Instagram at Saran T Baker. You can definitely find me on YouTube, Saran T Baker. Like, share, and subscribe. I go live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Covered by Saran. That's my business page. And I'm on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok. I got a page. Just go to Saran Baker. You can find me on TikTok. Now, and you can connect. You can also just always just shoot me an email, Saran at coveredbysaran.com. And that's SARAN. Or you can go to the website, but just shoot me a direct email and I'll send you the calendar link and we can get together. We can do a preliminary conversation to see what's what, and we can go from there. So that's how you can get in contact with me. And otherwise, I'm either on internet or out, doing events and trying to help people change their lives. So I'd love for you to connect and get with me, and let's see what we can do for you.
Yes. Well, thank you, sis, so much for being on the Stroke Diva Fabulous show. It has just been so informative and just enlightening because the finances are really what's key. I think I know a lot of
Mhm.
my stress is mostly about finances. So, and I think that's true for a lot of people. And so, like you saying, just getting with a professional, and I'm still with the same company I was with when I had the stroke, but
Mhm.
I no longer have that person. My person isn't there anymore. And
Mhm.
so, because your financials are so personal, yes, I can talk to these other people in the company, every year, but we don't have that, Judy used to come to my house, or I would meet at her office, or we would meet for coffee or lunch or dinner. And when I was sick, she'd just come to my apartment actually, to help make sure that things were moving along. And
Mhm.
at that time, I didn't know a stroke was coming, but I had been sick a lot that year. So I want to say, to our audience, having someone like Saran, with that personal touch really does make a difference. I know for me, before I started with the financial planner, I was like, I don't want anybody to see this mess that I have created. What?
But how are you gonna fix it?
Right. That was exactly Judy's like, well, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it together. And you think your stuff is bad, and then you hear the stories of things that are worse. And those horror stories were that she shared with me. That's when I really took action. I was thinking
Mhm.
at 37. Well, when I started working with her, I was probably in my, mid to early 30s. But I was thinking, well, nothing's gonna happen. I'm still young, but things do happen. So get covered by Saran. So thank you, sis. And with this platform, I'll work on it this weekend, listen to it, and repost it and see all the new things. It's like a new toy using Riverside.
I was just clicking some stuff. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't, but with it's like a new toy for me. I'm like, I love it that we are streaming live right now on different platforms. At least I hope. I remember you were sharing the story about you had been going live.
I've been going live for 6 months, and that one video was posted publicly.
So with social media, we don't know. So I am assuming that everything is working. But it has just been a joy having you. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone that's tuning in. Of course, once this is up and running, I will post and share my social media platforms. So thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Stroke Diva Fabulous Show. I'm your host, Kamaria T. Richmond. Blessings. Thank you, sis. Bye.
Bye.